Hi, it's John Romita Jr. at San Diego Comic-Con. Fantastic Comics in Berkeley is the best shop in the world, hands down.
Dan, Klaus! I really identified with the girls in Ghost World. They made me feel like I wasn't so alone.
Yeah, whatever. Do you know anyone who works at Batman? 'Cause I really want to draw Batman. I'm awesome at utility belts. Check these out. This is where the Batman keeps his money, in case he has to take the bus.
I'll eat my neighbors. See, my superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give 'em a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
Shit. Have you got it?
Yes.
Sounds like steam escaping.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3! What? No soup for you.
Oh, shut up, Pee-wee.
Why don't you make me?
Why don't you make me? Because I don't make monkeys. I just train them. Oh, Pee-wee, listen to reason. Oh, come on.
I'm listening to reason.
Pee-wee.
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
It's a pleasure working with you.
Well, you dirt-eating piece of slime, you scum-sucking pig, you son of a motherless goat.
Who are you?
Wherever there is injustice, you will find us. Wherever there is suffering, we'll be there.
Tell us we will die like dogs. What? Tell us we will die like dogs. You will die like dogs.
No, we will not die like dogs. We will fight like lions, because we are the Three Amigos!
I'm going to do a scene from the movie Raging Bull. You fucked my wife? What? You fucked my wife? How can you ask me a question like that? How can you ask me? I'm your brother and you ask me that? Where do you get the balls big enough to ask me that?
Do you really want to get him? You see what I'm saying? What are you prepared to do? Everything within the law. And then what are you prepared to do? If you open the ball on these people, Mr. Nash, you must be prepared to go all the way. Because they won't give up the fight until one of you is dead.
I want to get Capone. I don't know how to get him.
Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. And that's how you get Capone.
John, the kind of control you're attempting is, it's not possible. Listen, if there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is. There it is.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed?
No, I'm simply saying that life, finds a way.
If I were to guess, I'd say maybe I don't want to socialize with the pinko liberal Democrat commie. Ah. You may think it's patriotic to dissent, and maybe it is, sometimes. But to sue the army at a time of war is not patriotic. It borders on treason. And I'm disgusted with you. And just so you know, most of the Democrats voted for this war. John Kerry voted for it. Hillary Clinton voted for it. And now, suddenly, it becomes unpopular. Say what you will about Republicans. We stick to our convictions, even when we know we're dead wrong.
Some might say especially then.
Okay, you're checked in?
Yeah, thank you.
Here's your AIDS ribbon.
No thanks.
You don't want to wear an AIDS ribbon?
No.
But you have to wear an AIDS ribbon.
I have to?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't want to.
But everyone wears the ribbon. You must wear the ribbon.
What you are? You're a ribbon bully.
Hey, you, come back here. Come back
Come on, sir. You're obviously intoxicated.
You're obviously intoxicated.
Okay, that's it. Let's go.
That's it, let's go.
You're under arrest.
You're under arrest. No! I thought that my home was my castle, with no one scrutinizing me. No pigs, no lion bitch, no hassle. Y'all are brutalizing me. Can't a man not drink his beer in silence? Can't a man not crudely lie and scream? Can't a man not control his bitch with violence? Y'all are brutalizing me. Y'all are brutalizing me. How's that?
A man drink like that and he don't eat, he is going to die.
When?
Louie, your love for Jim is really touching.
Yeah, Iggy and me are tight. We're like Roy and Trigger.
Hey, Jim, you're not falling for this, are you?
I don't know. Am I, boss? There's nothing to fall for, Iggy. Wheeler's just jealous. But the fact of the matter is, there's a structure to cab driving. It's like a tree of life. On the very topmost branches, you have the Ignatowskis. Beneath them, you have the Rigas and the Nardos. Below that, you have your Banters, Apes, and Gibbons. Below that, you have your lice, your pond scum, your wheelers. You can't get lower than wheelers.
What about me, Louis?
I stand corrected. All right.
For shame, Doc. Hunting rabbits with an elephant gun.
Elephant gun?
That's right, Doc. So why don't you go shoot yourself an elephant? You do, and I'll give you such a pinch!
We're going to start our volleys. We hope you like the show. Everything is ready. We're raring to go. We'll give you all the latest songs, and this is full of pep. We're gonna start with high chuck. Just watch this chorus steps.
Originally settled as Ocean View during the 1850s, the city's population boomed with displaced
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fantastic Comics Presents, our 190th episode. I don't have a title. Let me see here. That's to prove it. I've screwed up on the numbers before. For those of you that are new here, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about comic books, but unlike other slobs that have comics in the background on spinner racks and stuff like that, I'm a comic book store owner also. And I have Fantastic Comics in Berkeley, California. 1708A MLK Junior Way. Open Wednesday through Sunday, 12 to 5 p.m. But I've been open later lately as the sun has stayed out longer. But that seems to be ending. I don't know. It gets really cold and dark at night and nobody shows up. Can you hear that? In Berkeley at that time, not in that area. Would it be worth it to, is that sometime you want to like come out real late, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock? I mean, a Wednesday, that's understandable. Anyway, until then, we've been open till 6, but it's unofficial. That's how we roll. And it's just me there, unless I have help. Rayson comes in and hangs out. Sometimes he's in the chat here, but I can't remember what his handle is. Say hello, Rayson. And hello to everybody else.
We didn't come to borrow any money. We didn't come to borrow any dough. We didn't come to borrow any trouble. We just stopped in to say hello. Oh, hello to you, Mr. Manny. Please don't think that we are hammy. We just stopped in from Alabama. We just stopped in to say hello. Oh boy, you said it. We just stopped in to say hello. And don't forget it. We just stopped in to say hello. And I'm... Hello. Hello. Goodbye.
Hello, everyone. It's a tall can right here. I'm going to get sloshed when we talk to my guest. Erica Sullivan, huzzah, watching over coffee and breakfast about 3:45 a.m. Thank you, Yule. I got my package from Fantastic Comics within a week and packed nicely in a Gemini mailer. Thanks for the Chaikin flag. I threw that in because he had talked about it. And let's be real, you don't usually sell all of the back issues of Howard Chaikin's American flag, if any. So I started him with some stuff that I found, and maybe he'll go to his local store, or maybe I'll have them. I don't know. We'll see. And then I'll charge for all the rest. First one's free, kid. Fantinuum. Oh, well, that was for $10 and Super Chat feature because I am monetized. I'm sure all the stuff that I played earlier is going to take all of that away. So please give freely, or maybe think about subscribing to the channel where I could put these things away and, I'll just cut out all that stuff and you can still have it. I don't know, something like that. Yo, Fantinium says, you should do an episode with all the Joes on it and call Yo Joe. Yes. If I could only get the second guest. But you know what? Let's introduce the guest for today, Joe Corallo. He writes comics. He edits comics. He sings songs in bars when he's not asked to, I do believe. And so many other things. We're going to find out. And he's back from a comic convention. If you haven't gone to a comic convention, where there's like comic celebrities, not just celebrities, but people that create those things. Joe was able to bend their ear, and he's going to give us all the poop. That's great. So yeah, hello, Joe.
Hello.
Excellent. What are you reading? What am I rubbing up against?
I am finishing up this Legion trade. It's long out of print, but
let the speculation continue.
Yeah, but this is I finished reading all of the pre-Crisis Legion, and including the Justice League crossover and issues 147, 148, and the Brave and the Bold issue, where they team up with Batman to fight Universo, like you do. And I still got to finish the Karate Kid series. I read the first issue of that, but I went through. It's a lot of stuff. Some of it's not collected, so I had to dig up some of that stuff, but most of it is at this point. And I just want to work my way through all of that through that whole Paul Levitt's run up until 5 years later. Read all 5 years later, because I never read all of it in order. So I was like, let's do this, and it's what I'm working through.
All right, so before we get back to chat, let's just go off, because that's what we're doing right now. So Legion of Superheroes. I personally am pretty much just a Keith Giffen guy when it comes to that. I've read the Beer Bombs and some of the stuff, with LaRock when Giffen's not around, but maybe like Legion side stuff like Rebels or Legion, whatever year it was, 90, whatever. Those were cool. But I don't really know that much. So I'm kind of like a Legion poser. Like I just like the hits.
That's okay. I love Legion Lost and Legion Worlds. That's
those are good. Yeah. How do you feel like what do you think about the Mark Waid run? I personally I never hated Mark Waid like other people do now. And I don't think then he was as hateable, at least as far as, I don't really pay attention to all the junk that people say. If it's not written down in a magazine, I don't care.
Yeah.
So like, I don't have a reason to, be disposed to not like his stuff. I was not a fan of his little tweaks, and it just felt like change for change's sake, like what the Giant Man, or what, Giant Boy, or whatever.
Colossal Boy,
Colossal Boy. So you all can't remember.
But it wasn't my favorite. I know Paul Levitz enjoyed it, but yeah, it wasn't as good. I feel like after the 5 years later stuff, some of the stuff after that's pretty good. Then Dan Abbott and Andy Lanning and Olivier Coipel, when they were doing stuff, good. That's probably the last stuff that I thought was really like interesting and innovative. I still read all the stuff when Paul came back before New 52 and during New 52. It wasn't quite the same, but it's still, I still enjoyed it enough. But that was about it for me. I feel like there's so much potential, but no one's, really tapped into it.
So one last Legion thing I want to throw out there. What was the one where Raja Ghul is the guy in the in the future that's the big bad guy, the dark side of the story or whatever?
Oh God, I'm blanking on
I kind of like that one. I forget what that was. Okay, don't worry about it. On the spot.
I might have even read it, and it's just this so long ago and so many different things. But but here's the thing too. I do enjoy that kind of stuff, but I feel like one of the best things about the Legion is that you can stay away from all the continuity. You don't have to deal with what's going on. You can kind of be your own little thing. So when they allow themselves to be like, and here's a reveal of another character who lived through the, it's
what? All right, one last one. You have to do you want to use when you were, let's say you are going to be allowed to do Legion of Superheroes, and not only that, reading the comic books that I have read, especially the most recent one that I've read was I had it right here. Here it is. I read The Never Ending Party.
Oh, thank you.
And you are dealing with a ton of characters in there. So again, I think Joe Corallo, if you could write Legion of Superheroes, be allowed to, not do necessarily anything crazy with anything. I don't want you changing nothing. I just want you to take the existing stuff that we know. Would you do a big cast or a small cast? And if so, on the small cast, who would you pick to focus on? Let's just say first year.
First year,
I know you think about it.
Sure. I think the important thing is sticking to a lot of the basics for bringing it back. I think you have to, even if they're not part of the main team, Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, and Cosmic Boy have to be there in some capacity, even if they're kind of leading the team and we're dealing with other characters. I think it's really important. Personally, I'd Wildfire's definitely up there for me. I think he's a great character. He's an interesting guy. He's got an attitude. There's just enough angst that you can, to make him really interesting. I've always liked Phantom Girl, Dream Girl. Sun Boy, I would definitely do some stuff with Sun Boy. I think, honestly, what I think would be fun would be doing sort of a bit of a rotating cast and focusing on the Legion Espionage Squad and just having them doing these missions and just having these kind of one and done stories where you're getting to know a small group of Legionnaires. And maybe Wildfire, Chameleon Boy, Phantom Girl, and Shadow Lass or something like that are kind of always in rotation. And Manel, I mean, come on, Manel's great, but and then focus on that, but also bring in, I feel like you do that. You bring in some of the older rogues. I personally love out the gate one of the first villains to be Dr. Regulus. I think he's pretty cool and underutilized enough where be fun. I think the Skylarian Pirates would be a fun one. I think there's little things I think you could do that could be fun too, where it's instead of RJ Brand, it's Universo, something like that. You do little things like that where it's oh, how did we get there? What's going on? Something that you're tipping off to the reader that there's stuff in the background that's going to pay off later. You can lean into the bit of how the Legion would sometimes have one of their stronger villains in a holding cell beneath the headquarters, and so you have ooh, there's a threat, and Universo's a threat, so you plant these threats around while they're going on these adventures. I think is kind of a good way to do it.
All right, so there you go. Clip that and send that to DC, everybody. Fantineum's name is up there whole time for that too. Lane Kramer, Yule Carter becoming the interview king. Just a few. It's guests, really. I mean, I guess the first one is an interview. I'm trying to a guest interview. What's that kind of it's a little bit of when Jimmy Kimmel would have a different person every week or something like that.
Oh yeah, he'd do that
maybe
over
that.
The summers.
Yeah, we're gonna a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this.
I think Jimmy Kimmel and the other late night hosts doing that podcast is what really got everyone to be we need to end the strike now.
Yeah.
So
we got to do that. Illithid Lore, oh snap, another stream with Joe. Exactly. Doc Post-a-Lot says, yo, and WWE. Well, you know what? That's let's just go through this really quick. Out here in Berkeley, Dwayne Muth is here. Excellent. Hello, you all, everyone. Wait a second. Did I miss something? It doesn't matter. I'll get you on the other side. Just say something again. Hello, you all in chat. Autumn rain, count 4 days. We had a rain morning. I woke up to hearing the drip, drip, drip. Sun back tomorrow. Going to LCS to get new comic book day. All right. Midtown Comic will have Snyder and Tynion. Could get book signed. There you go. Maybe you can figure out what Snyder's going to do that's like worthwhile. That isn't all that internet stuff he already did. Is he doing anything? Even Noctera's finishing up, it feels like.
Yeah, no, I know he's working on stuff. I don't know exactly what, but I know things are moving. I saw him at Baltimore Comic-Con the other week. So
right. LK says good evening, and also Yule, did you see that Jim Hanley is closing his Manhattan shop? Well, you know what? That's a great time for me to put this scroll down here for all the news that's going in comics. Oh, that's supposed to be a scroll. Hold on a sec. It's a high quality production I got going on here. So we'll be talking about that. Oh my gosh, Lane. All right, hold on. Joe says hello. Why did it do that? Why did it stop? There we are. Okay, great. Crack more boxes of random trades, dude. I know, but look, I keep getting all this stuff going on. What are you gonna do? LK says, okay, Joe, I need to know, will your jumping the gun, King Arthur and Knights of Justice be picking up from the end of the cartoon series, or will be a reboot, revamp? Give me a quick rundown of the answer for that.
Reboot.
All together. It's going to be like everything you thought you knew, you don't know. Or you know what? It doesn't matter that you don't know. You're going to be able to get into it.
Yeah, no, it's
ain't nobody watched this cartoon for real. I don't remember this. What is this? Was this one of those fucking USA cartoons? God, right after Pac-Man? Please.
I did watch it as a kid, though. I legit did.
Okay,
it's part of how I got the gig.
Than me, so.
Yeah, it's part of how I got the gig. Is I was talking with the editors.
USA cartoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they were.
I was at work during that time. I'm sorry, I keep running over you. Go for it.
No, it's fine. I was talking to them, and yeah, this was like last year at Baltimore Comic-Con. I was talking to one of the editors I was working with at that Batcave, and they were like, oh, well, yeah, we were just talking about licenses and different things, and they were like, oh, well, have you ever heard of, Starla and the Jewel Riders or Princess Guinevere and the Jewel Riders, because it goes by different things. And I was like, yeah, I didn't watch that, but I did watch King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. And they were like, really? Okay. Let's, come back to that. And, we had some conversations and made it happen. And
so when you say a reboot, are you saying like you're updating the existing story to make sense today? Is that what or is it altogether different?
It's not quite that. It is different in that it's updated.
I mean, I know it's more than an either or.
Yeah. It's updated in so far as it's taking place like the kids are from like today and not like 93. But there are like I am promising you now, because I'm done writing the script and almost all the art's in, but there is no cell phone screens, there's no emojis, so I'm not. Gotcha. Yeah, so it's not like it's really I really focus on like the Camelot aspect, the fantasy, and all of that. There aren't as many of the like one of the guys, Brick, summons like a giant brick wall, like that kind of stuff doesn't really happen. But everyone, the armor and all that's the same as the show. Mm-hmm. It's still a story about King Arthur, like the premise is still there.
So please tell me the premise while we're doing this.
So the premise is Morgana has won and defeated King Arthur and the knights and has imprisoned them in her, cave of glass. And now this team of football players in the present day is brought back to the past by Merlin to replace the King Arthur and the knights to save them and defeat Morgana. So all of that is still there.
Uh-huh. All right.
Yeah.
So where does so what are these Today kids doing? What's that all about? Because I like I said, I never watched the cartoon. I know King Arthur stuff, and I'd be happy to have a conversation about King Arthur in a little bit after we get through these chats.
Yeah,
But
and I added
but please tell me more.
I added a little more King Arthur mythos to it, because the cartoon, it's very, it's pretty, surface level with that. So I added a little more of that. I tried to come up with some explanations for things because, like in the cartoon, and I get it, it's a cartoon for kids and all that at the time, but
were they trying to sell toys also?
There are weapon summons from the chest icons. I see Lilith, but I was just saying like some of the other stuff isn't the same. But yes, there are chests. They summon the weapons and all that. But with this, the oath is there. The oath. There's a whole splash page of everyone saying the oath with the and all of that. It's all there, but it's some of the stuff like with like Merlin, his power level kind of like in the show, it's very much like he's as powerful or as weak as the episode needs him to be to explain why they can't beat Morgana or something like that. So I tried to be consistent with that. And a few other elements. I put in not only Easter eggs from like the show, but there's an Easter egg from the comic because there were 3 issues of a comic that Marvel put out. So there's an Easter egg from that. I rewatched the show before I wrote it, so there are elements from episodes and different things that I made sure to put in. Certain weapons, certain references, certain episodes. So all of that I think is done in a way that doesn't deviate. Like, I think even if you haven't watched the show, you'll get it because I think I did it organically. It's just like, this is what's happening in there. And if you like it, if you pick up on that, great. And if not, if you don't get that it's a reference, it's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, let's stop everything and focus on this thing. It's like, quick stuff throughout there. And I really got to enjoy writing Lord Viper, the villain. Like, there's a lot of really over the top villain sort of dialogue from Viper and Morgana. They were a lot of fun to write. So I really enjoyed that.
Now, so speaking of talking about the writing, and also I want to know about the art. Is it like watching a cartoon, like reading this also, or is it more like, remember how I'm not necessarily saying I want it to be this way or I would want something to be this way, but remember when they did Scooby Apocalypse?
Yes.
And it was like, well, now that's a departure from the original source material. I'm not necessarily asking for that much of a departure, but is it more like that? Or is it more like, what it originally was? How they're doing, how about this?
Yeah.
They do TMNT ongoing books, and they also do the Saturday morning cartoon ones. So, there's a specific style that's going on there. Or is there something in between? What do you think about that?
It's closer to the show than not, I think. But, it does get violent. There is blood. And things like that you wouldn't get in the show because
there's no comics code anymore.
You know, but it's nothing too, it's not too crazy. People aren't getting like their limbs lobbed off or anything like that. But it's they're in fights, and I made sure there are some like real drag out fights with King Arthur and Lord Viper. I really wanted to make sure that there were multiple fights going on there. It's very action heavy. I wanted to make sure that there's like multiple fight scenes and then regrouping, then more fighting, because it's King Arthur and the Knights of Justice book. So I wanted to make sure that's all there. There's some magic, some fun effects, things like that.
And
I
it's a
try to be
graphic
really,
novel, right?
it is a graphic novel, and as long as it does well, they're open to doing more. I actually know what I would do for volume 2,
All right.
which would be a lot of fun. So
Age
hopefully that
range
works
on this
out.
thing? What do you think about age range?
I think I mean it's probably like for teens. So in terms of it's appropriate for teens, I think it's appropriate for
So 10 to 14, 10 to 15, that type of thing?
yeah, I think
Or
10 and
not
up
18,
is
right?
yeah,
I mean,
no.
there's 18-year-olds that I mean, there's people that read all sorts of stuff. I'm not necessarily knocking it, and I understand that in anything you can. You're writing for an audience, though, right? On this one.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, but it's like you're right for an audience, but what's fucking audience anymore? I mean, it's
You
like
fucking tell me, man.
it's like kids want to read stuff that adults should be reading, and 30
Yeah.
somethings all want to read YA graphic novels. So what
Dude,
the
it's
fuck's
always
even
been
going
that
on
way.
anymore? But yeah, so it's like you can't, even if you're like, oh, I'm trying to write for this, it's like doesn't matter. No,
Right.
it's crazy. But I also see someone mentioned Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, which I also watched as a kid and had the action figures. And
All right, let me get
Tim
back to
Curry
chat.
was the voice of Kilo Khan. It was great.
All right. Tim Curry was the voice of Captain Hook in the Peter Pan cartoon that Fox Kids had.
I watched that too.
That had like maybe like 10 episodes. It was the cartoon equivalent of Moonlighting.
Yeah, and he was
really good, but hardly any of them.
He was almost the voice of Joker in the animated series.
He'd have been good.
Yeah, but no, I watched that cartoon a lot. I watched it. I mean, all that stuff, all of the Power Rangers knockoffs. I was the right age, so VR Troopers and what was it? There was another one that like everyone forgot about. It wasn't good. I mean, none of these were good, but you know what I mean. There was
you like what you like.
Yeah, right. It was Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills. Wow. That was another one. But I was all of that stuff. Once it got to like Big Bad Beetleborgs, I was like at that point where I was like getting like too old to be watching that stuff. But I only have younger siblings. Right. So, I mean, and my youngest brother is 7 years younger than me. So I'm aware of more stuff that I was too old for because, I'd have my brothers around and they'd be watching that stuff like Pokemon and all that stuff they were watching.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I took my brothers to the Transformers movie. I took them to Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I took them to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Those were some of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, no, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So, oh my God, what a...
LK says, I was at a local con last weekend, spent too much money. I broke down and took a chance on a Chris Claremont autographed X-Men number 96. Fingers crossed. Awesome. Good job. I love you spend more money. Not necessarily on the super chats. You can thank me afterwards when I like take out the videos that got me demonetized. Or it's not really a big deal. It's copyright claim. I mean, I don't own that stuff. What are you going to do? Lane Kramer for $5. So here is, a One Piece question, live action question for you. Okay, I got to admit, I am really not a big fan of the product that Netflix has given me a long, long time ago, and then Cuties came out. But the one program I did like to watch with Jill was the that one with the two old broads.
Oh, I know that one. I'm
The
blanking on it, but
Badonkadonk when I always play that video. I love that. I like Jane. What's her name? Hanoi Jane is what a customer told me when I have a picture up in the store. Jane Fonda, thank you. All right, so here we go. So we don't have Netflix, and I haven't seen this, and I haven't ever read a One Piece in my life, but I have plenty of friends and customers that have. Later in series, the female designs go for more fan servicey. Can the live action even possibly do that? I'm adding the possibly.
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question later of you if we ever got to something like this. Do you think a guy like Russ Meyer, and see, like, I don't know what Lane Kramer's, I'm assuming there's an aspect of the manga or the anime that American or more than American audiences might not be thrilled with. That's my guess. But a guy like Russ Meyer, this is something I do know. He likes boobs.
I've heard.
And it's some would say exploitation. Could movies like that really get made these days? I mean, it wasn't like it was high art or anything like that. And trillions of people were going out. It's more along, like, I would assume, like trauma films or things like that.
Yeah.
Just but definitely inspired a shit ton of people that make movies.
Yeah.
But nobody does that today.
Yeah. I mean,
can you answer this One Piece question?
Yeah.
Also?
I don't know. Insofar as I think to an extent, like, it's tough to translate some of that manga to live action because you have people with proportions that just don't exist.
Sure.
So I think there's going to be a lot of like meeting halfway, but I'm not afraid of them being too prudish because I know that I'm what's the guy's name, Oda, or the guy who created One Piece is consulting on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but what does that mean? I mean,
well, from what I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, is that he has been able to kind of be like, I'd really rather you don't do this or don't do that. So that's why I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of like meeting halfway on like with fan servicey stuff where it's like, well, we can only get people that look like this, and we have to make it so it's this is appropriate, that is appropriate, but not going against the intent of the property. So I think they'll get away with more than we might give them credit for, but I don't think it's going to be a 1-for-1,
Remember when they did that Daredevil movie and they had that one actor, I can't remember his name, who's dead now, the guy who played Kingpin?
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about.
Was he like
Marcellus
Wallace, if I remember correctly, or something like? But I didn't see the Daredevil movie, so I don't know. Was there a difference between that and when people were kind of griping about Heimdall? Because what I'm saying is it was black people playing a traditionally in the comic books a white character, and I'm not leaning one way or the other. I'm just asking a question because it didn't seem like anybody gave a shit when it was Daredevil. Of course, it was probably because it was a crappy fucking movie anyway, and he was the best part of it.
I mean, people weren't taking those movies quite as seriously. I think at that point it was more of a like, we're just glad we're getting this movie. But I think people also liked Michael Clark Duncan. Like, I think people just liked him as an actor. Right. I think he did a pretty good job. So I think that all helped. But yeah, with some of that stuff though, like with I hadn't personally seen too many people gripe about Heimdall. I know it existed,
It
but
seems like it's people saying people are upset about things more than I ever hear people are actually upset. But then you get into a conversation and you're like, well, it is kind of weird sometimes, or not, depending on the person. It's like, whatever.
yeah, but like, so I don't
How I
know.
look at it is like, you got to understand that you were servicing a certain amount of people and now you're trying to hit everybody. And in order to hit everybody, there is a certain amount of something that has to change. Unfortunately, when a lot of times it's just, white only, it never does.
Mhm.
And now it's so jarring these days, I guess people can't handle it. But I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know.
I guess people were upset when the X-Men changed. Well, you were upset because you were reading reprints. I got to go back to chat because I've been really ignoring it. Let me just skip through a little bit. And Sabaner is here to say, greetings, fellow mutants. Are you enjoying the Fall of X?
I'm really looking forward to where it's going.
All right. Yeah, me
But
too.
yeah.
Always thought they have missed out on not having Phantom Girl leading a special ops espionage team. Can I ask you a question? Are any of the Legion of Superheroes still on Earth? Because they were like not, they were separated. I can't remember if that was ever finished.
I don't know if they ever really did. It feels
But then
like
they did Bendis. So
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
with Bendis, and I know that like I don't know if that's going to count or not. Like I don't know if they're just going to do a fresh start if they do Legion again, or if they're going to build off on that. But like my suspicion, based on how they immediately tried to redo or undo what Bendis did as soon as he was off Superman, it was like wipe everyone's memory. No one remembers that Clark Kent Superman. So like, I feel like, especially because it's the Legion and you're like in the future, it's easy enough to be like somebody coughed on a butterfly and changed the future, and nothing Bendis did happened anymore. So I think they'll probably just do a fresh start with whatever they do.
I remember the weird villainess from Legion that made guys fall for her, but the opposite was females would be driven to hate her. Was that someone says Sharma? Sharma? I don't remember that
Yeah,
character.
yeah, not like a Bronze Age, like yeah, because there
Well,
was
I mean
yeah.
the Legion of Superheroes, man. It should be a go-go 60s in the far future, right? It's
Oh
like
yeah, no,
this pansexual stuff that everybody's scared of now should be like totally a thing, right? I mean, it's aliens and light
sure.
sockets and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
I
talking about
love
Wildfire, or
yeah,
yeah, right? Wildfire.
yeah, Wildfire,
He's
yeah.
just an energy, in a costume, and
Yeah,
I always fear for his life. But why would you? He's just
yeah.
his normal
He
being,
doesn't
right?
break burrows anymore. He's Wildfire. He doesn't have a body anymore. But and you could kind of play. I would love to play with that, but I do love like the retro future of Legion. I feel like I don't know why no one's done it this way either. Like there's a way to kind of do it where it's more of like a James Dean Rebel Without a Cause, like kind of like these like kids with powers. You could kind of treat it like the 50s, where like teenagers are getting cars and now they think they're hot shit, and like you know, and the Legion is more created to like control them, to be like, let's give them a purpose, so that way they're not like out there causing a ruckus. So I think that's a great. There's so many things you could do with this team that
There's
fits
so many.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the Legion, and I can bring it back to Never Ending Party.
Sure.
You deal with it was a little rough. I mean,
Sure.
I feel like there was an aspect of the digital version of you putting it out as opposed to the comic book. Was there seemed to be some beats that were a little bit different.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm
it
just
reads a
totally
little
reading into that.
different. No, but there's some formatting and stuff that has to happen and all that. But
Yeah.
it
Well, I mean,
was
it didn't
very
feel like something I should have been reading as a graphic novel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of odd. You
Yeah.
were dealing with a lot of characters, though,
Yeah.
and I know of your love of the Legion of Superheroes, and you have a really cool style when you're writing stuff.
Thank you.
Maybe when I'm the thing I've noticed though recently is that you've been doing a lot of this happened then and then this is happening now.
Yeah.
It kind of was, not only were you doing that with Dahlia in the Dark, but then in Dahlia in the Dark you were also dealing with an entirely different area. So it was kind of like three different things that you were juggling, and I feel like that is a real so just artistically, Todd McFarlane said that he doesn't like to do team books, but a guy like Jim Lee, even Rob Liefeld, depending on how you like him, they're the guys that do team books. There's people that really excel at it, like George Perez, and John Byrne, and then there are sometimes the difference is that they can actually go into a solo also. That's really nice. But you as a writer, you in Dahlia in the Dark, and in this one, Never Ending Party, you deal with a ton of characters, and it feels like everybody that wants to get into the Legion or tell me more about the Legion, everybody is so very scared, and at one time you just dive into a comic and you just would read it. It didn't matter what issue you picked up. Tell me, how does this all pertain? And also, Timberwolf is a very good character.
Oh my God, I love Timberwolf. Yeah, he's great. Oh God. And then I love how in that Dave Cockrum, Mike Grell era, he's looking like what Wolverine would eventually look like in when Cockrum's on X-Men. Coincidence.
Right.
No, there's definitely a lot of that. But yeah, I like, juggling a lot of characters like that. And the going back and forth with that, it's trying to think of entertaining ways to get exposition and get information to the audience that I think they need, and pacing. It's about breaking things up and trying to keep the reader engaged. And I think for me, that's a tool I use with that. I know different people do different things, but the last thing I want to do is just bog people down with captions to explain things that I'd rather do visually. And sometimes that just requires me having to be okay, this happened then, this is what's happening over here, and bouncing around a bit, but trying to do it in a way that makes it more of an entertaining read. And not giving people all the information. They have to get enough of the information. I think when you spoon feed everything to someone, it makes it boring. And it's a lot of that. But especially with something like the Never Ending Party, the way I was doing that with Rachel is we would have a phone call, I'd break down the beats of the story, and then we would swap different scenes and oh, you write this, I write that. So I think that also lended itself to, oh, here's a 3 to 5 page chunk of something going on in the present or the past, and then there's another chunk, and that's what I'm writing, and she's writing this. And so I think that kind of made that that emphasized that element a bit, I think, in the Never Ending Party itself.
Right. Well, so I was reading it and I showed Jill, and she's on, this doesn't look like a book you'd read, Yule. There was a time, maybe, possibly. I was really into Vertigo back in the 90s.
Mhm.
And I think, obviously Rachel Pollack was involved in Vertigo in the, the mid to late 90s. So it was a little bit different, but not very much. And it was along the same lines, kind of going in and continuing what was done before, but
Yeah.
with your own, your own style. Hopefully, that comes out. It doesn't always, not everybody. Some people that come in and they're like, you know what, I can just keep doing what they're doing and just like keep moving it along, keeping, quite often that's some of our favorite stuff, actually.
No, for sure. Well, also with Vertigo in the 90s and all that, like I'm really partial to Nancy Collins' Swamp Thing run,
Uh-huh.
and I love that Alan Moore actually called her at one point to tell her how good she thought, or how good he thought her run was, and what she did with Abby. He was like, "I'm so glad you did that. That's like that was the right move to do with Abby Arcane." So like that kind of stuff is like, yeah, no, for sure. It's I think it's a criminally underrated run. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who this is the difference between someone when like you go to their house and they've got like a bunch of novels, and then they have like the one shelf of comics, and it's just like Watchmen, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Sandman,
V for
Mouse,
Vendetta.
V for Vendetta, maybe Black Hole, and like they've got that, like
Maybe a
Ghost,
Batman.
maybe Year
Killing
One of the
Joke.
Dark Knight Returns, like stuff like
Yeah.
that, and someone who like actually reads comics, it's like,
Oh, you got this?
oh, yeah, just
What?
like just like
What could I don't know what I could show you over here. Do you know who Pat Grant is?
I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure I do.
He did he's like an Australian. He has done like 2 or 3 books altogether.
Sure.
He is one of my he's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Dylan Horrocks is? You got to know who that is, right? Oh,
Yeah.
really? He did Hicksville.
Mm-hmm.
But he also, for Vertigo, he did Books of Magic with Dean Ormston. It was horribly boring and beautiful, but I couldn't stand it at all. But like Dylan Horrocks' regular stuff that he puts out, that is like some amazing stuff that almost. I'm really happy that I was able to. So we were talking about Joe Matt last week, and he died. And I gotta let you know, as far as comic books are concerned, that one really hit me hard. That was kind of like when Pee Wee kind of died, Paul Rubens. That was, I remember growing up. My only cool gift from my father was like the one with the drawstring.
Yeah, I had that. I had the play set. I had all that. I was really into it. Mm-hmm.
And then I got to like work at a comic store that sold the dude who designed all this stuff. I can't think of his name right now, but he does comic books also. Jimbo and Hell and things like that. And it was sad. I got to have my buddy on. We talked about Joe Matt and Seth and Chester Brown and all that stuff. But someone who's alive, when I had you on a time ago, you were like, "Oh, we should get together and like celebrate someone's life." And hey, today it is the 77th birthday of Wheezy Simonson.
Yep.
Have you ever heard someone say Simonson before? Because I have a number of times.
I don't think I have, but it's definitely Simonson.
Excellent.
Just say it. I've met with her. I've talked with her a bunch. She's really great. I've gotten to work with her a little bit. You
I had like a
I
super. I'm sure I've said it before, but I've had like a super crush on her ever since like those Marvel Fumetti like editorial type stuff. You know,
yeah.
back when she was what was her last name? Jones or something like that.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
Louise Jones. Yeah,
yeah.
that's her credit on a bunch of the older X-Men, like when she was first starting to edit X-Men. I think that like through Days of Future Past and stuff like that, it was like Louise Jones. And it's funny when you get her to sign stuff when she was Louise Jones, she'll ask you like, "Do you want me to sign it, Louise Jones?" Like she's like, "I'll sign it, Louise Jones."
Oh yeah.
You know, but it's really great, and she gushes about these things, and it's really nice. She's super sweet. It's funny how she got that gig editing X-Men because of Jim Salicrup. Because Salicrup took over after Roger Stern and edited through like the Dark Phoenix saga. I want to say Wheezy's first X-Men credit was 137, like around there. And Jim was such an Avengers guy. So when Jim Shooter hired Wheezy, the way it worked was, all right, I hired a new editor, so everyone give Wheezy one of their books, and we'll put it together. And everyone was kind of like throwing stuff at her, like, here, I don't care about this, you can take it. But Jim, to his credit, was like, I think there's a lot of potential in this X-Men franchise. At the time, the one book. And he's like, I don't want to break up the Avengers. Why don't I give this to Wheezy? And I think, she'll really like it. It's really doing well. Like the book was really hitting its stride and people were paying attention by then. And like she was thrilled. Jim Shooter was thrilled. Like he didn't have to do that. Jim could have been like, I know where this book's going. Here, take this. Like no one cares about what's going on in like, Captain America or something right now. I'm going to stick to X-Men. And he didn't do that. And it's part of how she, got the career she did.
All right. Well, not too long ago, I did an X Factor that she wrote that Dave Mazzucchelli did the artwork for when her husband was doing the art, but he only did it for that issue.
Nice.
Fantastic issue. I think a lot of people will normally use her name up front, and probably like Ann Nesenti when they're talking about the women that have worked in the industry as writers. And I mean, it's like it feels like a shield so often.
It does. I do think.
How dare you? I liked something way back when. I think Louise Simonson, though, is really talented. She was a good writer. She did some really great stuff. Her Superman stuff was fantastic. She was involved with something that, destroyed comic books, but,
Yeah. Well, it wasn't her fault. But, and honestly,
it wasn't her fault.
No. The biggest person to blame is Jerry Ordway, because he was the one every meeting would be like, let's just kill Superman already. But,
that's right.
But with Wheezy, I mean, part of why that story works at all is because she did like all the like funeral for a friend stuff. She was doing the stuff that really like added the emotional weight to it. That really I think helped sell that story. And it's really funny too, because I don't know if people know this or not, but the issue where with the eulogy where the president gives it, that had to go to print before the election was decided. So it was Walt and Wheezy were the one. They were like, I look, we think it's going to go this way, so let's
so what you're saying is everybody that thinks things are fixed now, they were fixed all the way back then too.
Well, what was it? Wasn't it? I want to say when the Kennedy Nixon in 1960, they even made a joke. I think Nixon's team or someone with Nixon made a comment about, well, if if Kennedy didn't steal Chicago, we would have. So like that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's whatever.
Oh
But
man. I
no,
can
it's
talk to you
but
about anything. This is great. You're the best guest ever, just to let you know.
Thank you. But no, it's so like all that stuff's interesting, and it's so funny because Wheezy would also talk about that. What was it? How her and Dan Jurgens and she, they're friends. And
What was his name? Dan what?
Jurgens.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Just
he
wanna make sure.
was for all of you who know, like Wheezy was writing one of the Superman comics, and Dan was writing another one, and they would joke around because Wheezy was more liberal and Dan's more conservative. So Wheezy would write stuff where she would sort of take the office of the presidency and all that stuff a little more seriously at the time, and then Dan would come in and like it was subtle stuff. Like you'd really have to be like on the ball to notice. Like he would do stuff where he's like, Cyborg Superman's clearly the villain, so I'm going to make Bill Clinton look like an asshole and like shake his hand and be like, "This is our Superman, this is our hero," and stuff like that. And it was all like intention. They would like talk about that kind of stuff behind the scenes. And it was all, they all knew what they were doing, and there were these like subtle things going on.
That's great. I like that because what people that didn't read them might not know. What you would have to do is read all 4 Superman books because they would have the shield marking what year and what number it was, and depending what part of the story you're on, you knew what to get, and you didn't always need to, but more often than not, they really had you in those times to read Superman books, and I think they were really, really fantastic, fun stuff back then, and the artists that I see people do like, but the thing is a lot of people like people when they die, or they like something that someone that was like workman. I think a person that was a workman but also had something different, and it wasn't always great, was her artist on Man of Steel. What's his name? John what?
John Bogdanov, right? Like it's
Bogdanov.
Yeah.
I also said Bogdanov, but whatever,
Yeah, no, for sure. But
but his stuff there, he has some amazing work in that, especially when Steel
like
was.
him.
Yeah,
I know people who are like, no, but like,
well, his X Factor was trash. I mean,
Sure.
especially when you had Jim Lee and all that other stuff going on.
Mhm.
It just didn't work out quite the same way for me. But on his Superman, especially when it was Man of Steel, he was really, really good, especially during then. I mean, amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
he put up a bunch of his pages through Heritage Auction like a couple months ago.
How'd they do?
They did pretty well. Like,
Nice.
I kind of wish they didn't, so I could have grabbed a page or two, but they all did pretty well. He must have held on to them for a while. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the money move, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you were forward thinking enough and you didn't have any fires in your house. Eric Breen says, has anyone seen Joe? I've checked 3 live streams and there he is. Have you been doing live streams recently? I haven't seen you on anything. I always check
I
your
pop
name.
up on what was it? Jimmy does Mad Men in a Box, and I usually pop in there like once a month.
God, man.
Yeah, and I also do Pop Culture Philosophers, which is another retailer, Robbie Billups,
Right.
down in
Do they have a theme
Alabama.
song like I do?
They don't have a theme song like you do.
That's what I've always said.
But we we do. I'm usually there because he'll do movie reviews every like Monday. So I go in there like a couple of times a month. Last week we did Sleepaway Camp.
That's so popular these days. I mean, it was popular a few years ago with some of those podcasts I had heard, but people are only now really, really getting in the groove to like it's become the thing for sure.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
There's an ending. It's spectacular if you haven't seen it.
I think I love 2 and 3 as well. It's a great kind
Really?
of trilogy. Well, because by the third one, for anyone who hasn't seen Sleepaway Camp 3, Angela Baker it starts with her mowing a girl over with a Mack truck in like an alley.
Oh, wow. Oh man, you know what the best thing I ever saw like that was? Did you ever see the 3rd season of Twin Peaks?
Yeah.
And like that one like fuck up son's driving a truck, and then there's a kid crossing the street. And I remember like watching it, and I was like, "No fucking way!" It was like, "What the fuck?"
Yep.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's typical David. I mean, you're like, "Oh, no way." There's a little. All right, you guys, excellent. Commander Cody's here. All right, talking about Brain. Oh, also Battle Buddy said Portasio did the art in the X Factor. Unbelievable book. Well, he did do some. I know that.
Yeah, no, he did. That was that was towards the end, right? When Claremont took the book back over, and you had a.
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
I can't. You know what? I was kind of out during that time. What I was doing is I was reading more Vertigo for sure.
Yeah.
And for me, Vertigo. I mean, I like Sandman, but Shade was the one that really spoke to me the most. The most.
I cannot believe, with everything that they've been putting out as omnibuses and compendiums, that Shade the Changing Man has not been one of them. It doesn't make any sense to me.
You have one of the most important we're talking about better than Workman artists that kept a schedule like the greats couldn't. In Chris, however you say his last name,
Bacalo. Yeah.
Bacalo. He is so. You want to get something done, that guy will do it. Spider-Man, X. I mean, we're talking about a guy that can do a solo title and a team title, and he can do it wild. He can do it. I mean, he does get pretty wild, but some of my favorite X-Men stuff that wasn't the early stuff was his work, and and his early stuff in Shade. I mean, you could see the progression from his everyday style to what he is ultimately going to become. It was just like, you're right in the middle there. It's the missing link right there. And it's just so great. Oh, just amazing. It was right when Vertigo became a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Sandman stuff he did too was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he only did that one issue, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because there were a handful of like one and dones, like Mike Allred did that one issue, like things like that. But
right.
It's that's something that I really like, that original run. Like, I feel like this is what everyone feels, and no one's willing to say it. And this isn't a knock on anyone who worked on the book, because this is just true for most runs of things. Like, that original run was like lightning in a bottle. I really enjoyed it, but like, it's hard to come back to and feel that same level of interest and excitement, no matter how many times they come back to, the Sandman universe. And that's not to say none of it works or anything like that, but it's hard to come back. I mean, how many times has Claremont come back to X-Men? And it's like, no one's ever like, well, this is better than the heights of the Claremont run, or things like that. No one's ever like, oh, that like what was it, The Game or whatever it is, that like graphic novel of Teen Titans that Marv Wolfman and George Perez came back for. No one ever goes like, that was better than the run. Like, it's hard to come back to that.
They topped out when they did the relaunch, and then George Perez was off, and then you might have some really good people like Barreto or Jose Luis Garcia Lopez on art, but it just wasn't the same. And I don't think Titans, there's been a couple times, believe it or not, that I think have been really good. Maybe possibly when it was McCone on art and Jeff Johns on writing.
Okay.
And then most recently, I think his name is Glass, Adam Glass. And it was when Crush was the in the group, and I think Bernard Chang was on art. And those were one of those titles where I could read a title that was, with younger characters and not feel like I'm reading something that I shouldn't be reading.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was better than that. And it felt like how I felt when I was reading it at that time. I also feel like Strange Academy is the same way, with Ramos writing and or Young writing and Ramos and art.
Yeah, I really liked Strange. Speaking of a book that I'm clearly not the demographic for, that I was reading and enjoying. I know. Before, I'm talking about, kids are reading what adults want, adults are reading what kids want, and I do that sometimes too. But it's just what happens.
You know what I've noticed, and I've talked about this at the store, and it was when I was watching a South Park when it was still on Hulu. They have hey, this is for mature audiences. And I think about all the things that make this mature for mature audiences. And there's nothing a mature audience member should ever want to see in a South Park episode. So who are they warning? It's like, what are you doing here? I mean, no. Only immature people should be watching this, not mature people. Mature people don't want to see this.
It's true.
We're let's be real about it, Do you believe that Bocciolo, what did you say? Bocciolo?
Bocciolo.
Bocciolo is a genius. Every 2 years his style has a unique change. Unique, really? I mean, I feel like he's perfecting. And not only that, I also feel like this for writers, musicians. When you are an artist, you find the thing that you want to, whether you know it or not, you're working on the thing that you're always trying to perfect. And it kind of, you very rarely are you challenging yourself to do something so different. Kind of why like David Bowie gets like so much credit for doing so many different things. And then, of course, detractors will say, well, he picked up on what was coming out and he perfected it before anybody else had a chance to.
I love when detractors are like, he figured out how to make money.
Sure.
It's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, what, but the thing too is, when it comes to Bowie, is he would also, when he would go on tour, there was a long stretch of time where he would go back and he would do new arrangements of the songs so they sounded like they were on the new album. So when he would do songs like on the Serious Moonlight tour, he rearranged them so even classics like Space Oddity and stuff like that sounded like they could have been on that album. Same when he did what was it, when he was touring for around like Diamond Dogs, he did the arrangements so it sounded like could have been like things like that, which I think is really interesting. And he did that with when he was touring with 9 Inch Nails, around when like Outside came out.
They had some really good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that shows like an extra level of commitment, because it wasn't just like, oh, I want the new album to be like, he really committed to the bit,
right,
in a way that most people don't.
I think I'm getting the right name. Luther Vandross, I think, R&B singer. Supposedly, or I was listening to an interview where they were talking about him, and they were saying how he worked with David Bowie. And not only that, but David Bowie would bring him out on tour. I hope I got the right name. Would bring him out on tour and, put him out in front of like a crowd of people that, are looking for David Bowie, not him, And what they don't know is that a lot of the thing that they're going to be seeing later was crafted by Luther Vandross. And like, as a favor, he was kind of like hey, this is your training. You got to go out in front of people that don't know you and haven't heard your thing, and you have to win them over and that kind of thing. And he's, he gave back without a doubt. I'm not a detractor necessarily.
Sure.
I'm just talking. Anyway, Peter Milligan was awesome. I agree.
Oh yeah, no, Peter Milligan's great. He did. I mean, X Factor is still like X Factor, Ecstatics, that X Force Ecstatics run.
X Force Ecstatics. Oh,
that's one of my all-time favorite like offshoot X titles like ever.
All right, so I have a question for you, and it's kind of I've wanted to talk to you about this. I kind of joked about it with Joe Casey, but I think I can like really say it to you. So much conversation is how much the creators of comic books disdain the people that are reading them. I do have a belief that there is a writer, an artist, or whatever, an artist out there that has a belief of the people that they're going to be reaching. But the reality is that they're not going to reach those people as much as all the other people. So my joke was, who do you hate? Which fans do you hate? Obviously, I can't imagine you'd really hate anybody. But if you could, talk to the fans that think that comic creators hate them. If people knew about what I read in The Never-Ending Party, all you need is one librarian to pick this book up. And let me tell you, librarians, Fantastic Comics has it. People would maybe get upset if they actually had to read words or, look at detailed pictures or anything like that.
That was important to me, and I'm sure it was to Rachel as well. I don't want to speak for her on that, but she was aware. She wrote some of those words. I'll say this. In the scripts, the T word is used, and she used it first.
T word? Are you not allowed to? Wait, what's the T? The one that rhymes with Dramamine?
Yes. So we.
I don't.
Yeah, so we use. She was the first one to use that in the script. That was one of those things where I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I can use that."
Well, yeah, but did you do it back in the '90s? You were allowed to say that in the '90s.
Oh, sure, but so things
it's a
like
shame for people that feel like they're in on it, and then they say something that they don't know that they're not in on anymore. It's such a shame.
Yeah, but and we got no pushback from that at all, which was real. I really appreciated. We we wrote that. We put them on there. Like the letterer wasn't like, I'm not comfortable with it. Like we didn't have to deal with none of that.
You use fag derisively.
Yeah.
Not only that way. Yeah, multiple times. Stuff like that. I think some people are shocked when they see that, but do you feel like, it's like, well, I'm allowed to do that?
I certainly think I'm allowed to do that. Like, I should. No one should have a problem with that. But yeah, it is, it is funny with that kind of stuff. And I did like prep the letter before it sent the script over. I was just like, hey, I don't want, I just want you to know before I send this over, and totally cool with it. He was like, whatever you need. But I didn't want it to turn into a thing with like, oh, well, I don't know about this or, and then but I talked to him about it. I submitted it after that and sent it in without prepping the people higher up at Comixology and Dark Horse and stuff. I just sent that in, and again, no pushback. There was no one being like, if we're gonna print this, we gotta do nothing. So I really appreciate that quite a bit.
I liked how you were able to do little info dumps about trans characters in the book, and the one, is it Lulu? coming
Lulu,
from
yeah.
the 90s, because she kind of like was gone and then she came back. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
like say it that way. So she's kind of like getting caught up on like, oh wow, this is really amazing stuff that's going on right now. They're like, yeah, you don't know what the fuck's going on right now.
Yeah, no, but the whole it ends up you know being kind of like yeah, but I don't care. This isn't for me.
Right.
Thing in the story, which I think hits a little different now that Rachel passed. But you know, I think people read into that a little bit potentially. Um, you know, but
What do you think about the whole? This is a hard hitting question. I didn't think I was going to say this. What do you think about tarot and you know, gods and stuff like that?
I mean, me personally,
yeah.
I think of it as it. A lot of this stuff is with tarot, especially. I look at it, and I think a lot of people do. I don't know if they admit it or talk about it this way, but they're all tools of introspection. Like it's all about introspection and looking in. So, like when you get a reading, and I've had my tarot reading done multiple times, but it's usually like, oh, well, you know, for example, it'll be something like, oh, the cards are laid out here, and I'm seeing that there's someone in your life, looks like a woman, and there's something going on here where there's some sort of, it's not a relationship, it's like a partnership. Someone is helping you this year get to the next phase in your life, you know, and things like that. And then it's you use that information, go like, oh, you know, now I'm thinking about it, and like, oh, gee, you know, my friend so and so really helped me out. This, you know, like maybe I'm not appreciating her that much. Maybe I'll give her a call and let her know how. Like that's really how, you know, for me, I look at stuff like, you know, tarot and that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of people out there that also do, and but it gets kind of glossed over or overwhelmed by some people who take it to that next level or so, if that makes sense.
Sure. This no, not tarot, witch of the Black Rose. Let me ask you a question. When you saw Jim Ballant drawing Catwoman, because you know he has very large globes on the purple suit, did you think he could actually draw women with bigger boobs? And then were you impressed that he could when he did tarot?
I do it, you know, in its own way, it's kind of impressive. Yes, it's a little
very
like,
impressive.
You know, I hope she's wearing a back brace.
LK says tarot perks up. Oh, tarot cards. Never mind. I had the Vertigo tarot cards. I'll have, or the it's Vertigo ones.
Vertigo tarot, which was written by Rachel.
I have many friends in my past life that would burn candles and incense at certain times and do certain things, tarot readings and all that stuff. But I have personally given up the belief in extracurricular life out there in all manners. You know, maybe microbes, but you know, it's not that big a deal to me. Like I don't believe in a controlling hand or anything like that. And I definitely don't care about that in my life right now.
Sure, no, I get that. I'm at that point, but I think for a lot of people, it's more about the ritual. There's a comfort in rituals, and I think there's a lot of people that do it for that reason. Not to be condescending to people, but I think that's something. It's like it's a comfort. It's like I think deep down, a lot of people know that like this may or may not be real, but it's working, or maybe you know there's a comfort to it. It seems to be working. If it's making you feel better, or it's making you feel like your life's better, like who is anyone to say, well, stop doing that, you know, if you're not hurting anybody. So
we're gonna hit these topics. I'm gonna just play this video, and you know, it's the thing I do. I don't think it's even close to the end of the show. I'm going to let all of you know that we have a patron account. Thank you, everybody that has ever given money in the past and still does. These are the names of those people. What kind of people give money to a comic store that does a show for his customers? People that used to be employed. Maybe none of those people have. Former customers, people that have too many comics but still want to support a comic store / show, fans of mine, friends of mine, all that stuff. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're still helping me get out of this crazy hole from way back when. Comics, believe it or not, aren't as bad a sales as a lot of people want to believe. But recently, Joe, Jim Hanley, I think it was just today. I saw this because it was reposted by Mark Miller, and that goes into some of the conversation I wanted to have with you. Mark Miller, Jim Hanley says that they're closing their Manhattan offices, if you will. And I could only, a lot of people were talking about the death of comics, how horrible things are at the big two. Yada, yada, yada. A lot of the people that you would expect to see say things out there. The kind of people that I used to sort of maybe possibly not disagree with. But now it's like it's every fucking thing. I can't goddamn stand it. It's like, there are people that are trying to stump for this industry. And, you backhandedly say, oh, I care about the retailers, Meanwhile, you're fucking selling something online or whatever, I'm sorry, a little rant.
Sure.
Just a little one.
You're good.
A person I don't ever agree with. Almost ever. And Joe Casey's a really good friend of her, of Heidi McDonald's. She said Manhattan prices. I can only imagine what freaking Manhattan prices are. No shit, that's the fucking reason why they're closing. I mean, it's just way too crazy. Yeah. There's less people going out on the streets these days. I'm assuming in New York too.
Oh yeah.
It's not all homeless or thievery or all this stuff that you see on the internet. It's like, I don't want to travel all that way when I can get fucking Amazon or some asshole in an Uber Eats to deliver it to me.
Yeah. Well,
that's the reality of the fucking world these days. I'm sorry.
Well, you also have Midtown Comics, and they deliver. You can just order online.
Oh well, they deliver.
And get it delivered. So if you're in New York, and you don't go out, and some of it too is there's still a lot of people who, if it's not fully remote, they're only going to the office 1 or 2 times a week.
Right.
If you're not going into Manhattan all the time, that's something you might cut out of your, usual habits. Like, oh, I used to go for this, but I'm not in as all the time anymore. So,
Right. I realized it even before the pandemic happened. I was saying, we're doing a lot more online sales, going into a smaller location. Having stuff sent out from here is a better way to do things, but we didn't really. The fact of the matter is, and I'm having a lot of conversation with this one customer that's like, I think you really should do something like this. And I hear a lot of things from a lot of people anyway, and I'm sure you do too. Hey, I got a story idea for you. Oh, you should really do this. But I value what he says, and I don't disagree necessarily with what he says. But ultimately, I've always been a guy that wanted to sell comic books. I am stumping for comic books. I'm selling new stuff. I'm selling old stuff. I like old stuff. I like new stuff. I've always been this way, and I'm always going to be this way.
Sure.
There's other things I like, but as a medium, it's all about comic books. Yeah. So he's really into I got a really good hookup for toys. And, I'm also partially telling my customers, hey, I've got a hookup for toys.
Yeah.
We're even going to talk about, having a loose toys available for cheap. I don't think anybody fucking cares about toys. And if they do, they freaking order online.
Yeah.
but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't want to sell toys, is what I'm saying. I don't want to sell a lot of magic cards. I don't want to sell pop vinyls. The only pop vinyls I get are the ones that I'm willing to carry in my own home, right back behind me, right there.
Yeah.
And stuff right over here. Very little. I don't really appreciate comic stores that are really variant cover comic stores. Or, oh, we've got a whatnot, but we don't have a real physical location that you can walk in. I understand that there's people out there that do that, and I'm not begrudging them that. But when they are counted in the comic stores and when people are paying attention to that stuff, I can't stand it anymore.
I get it. Absolutely.
What do you think about? So, what kind of comic customer do you hate?
With this, I would say, and hate's a strong word, but I think the one thing that I wish, and it's a very small percentage of people that do this, but it exists. Are the people where maybe you say like what your story's about or something like that, like, oh, like this is what I was going for, and the person might respond with like, no, you were doing this, and it's like, no, I wrote it, I know what I was doing, and they'll argue with you about the story that you did and act like like, well, no, you're lying to me, this is clearly, I read this and this is what you did, and it's like, no, and they think that and you could get stuck in an argument with that. I haven't personally dealt with that, but I mean, you've seen that stuff on the internet before where you get these people who are arguing with people about the intention of the story that they wrote or illustrated, and being like, that's not what you did this, and that's that.
I remember I got in a very slight one for a Captain America Alex Ross cover where he was holding the flag that was touching the ground, and people were like, he would never do that, and I'm like, well, what if he picked it up off the ground?
Yeah.
You still gotta pick it up. I mean, it was dragging on the ground, but I mean, it was like he's standing still. It's no big deal. It's just a moment in time. It was a beautiful moment. I thought it was really good. And everybody was like, oh, this is showing the downfall of Marvel. And that was like, 7 years ago.
Yeah. No,
maybe
for
less.
sure. That kind of stuff. It's like, it's fine if you interpret something some way. But after the person who did it comes out and says like, I get that you're seeing it that way, but that wasn't my intention. And you're still like, nope, that was your intention. Like, that's like what I'm like, come on. Like,
Illitha Lord says, Yule, do you have time to discuss Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior? Not on this show. Yeah, I was raised Lutheran, just to let everybody know. I know that doesn't count for so many people, but fuck Catholics. I can't stand fucking Daredevil. You know what I mean? I'm so sick of Irish Catholic stories. I mean, and only that, but I mean, I've got a little Irish in me. But like, do they all have to be Catholic all the time and redheaded? Jesus. Milligan's Hellblazer is underrated. It was really good. Yeah, it was the end before New 52. It was at the time the longest running consecutive issue comic book after the Uncanny X-Men had ended, and then they killed it at 350, and it's a shame. Emil Semp says, I like toys. Yeah, but I know only if they're vinyl and small or glow in the dark. So this isn't what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Rogue Comics. I find it funny that people Drama Farm slots Twitter. Okay, we'll go there in a second. For outrage content retweets, but they ignored he mentioned Hanley's going out of business a month ago. All of a sudden, it's a thing. Well, if Mark Miller doesn't say it, nobody fucking cares, right?
Yeah.
I was wondering, have any of you read the modern Star Wars comic? No. I read the old Dark Horse. No. Have they been any good? I doubt it. I hear no, but I sell them. So what are you going to say? I mean, to me, yeah, they do.
I've read a handful. I haven't really read much of it since like the Jason Aaron stuff. But and I mean that's going back like almost a decade now. I feel like it was what 2015 or something like that.
Right.
But no, yeah, it's
You
fine.
want to know?
I,
I'm gonna tell you really quick what Star Wars I've read. I've read Taggin Being Aren't Dead, and I read that Tony Millionaire Jar Jar Binks landing with his parents, like when they get like marooned. And it's the funniest thing because his father can't stand Jar Jar, and it's just so good. It's the only thing I've ever read.
amazing.
All right, so let's. I was going to talk. Well, let's start really quickly. Jim
Yeah.
Hanley's closing down. Mark Miller talking about it. I took exception to something he had to say. So he's all cut to the usual suspects saying everything is fine, but look at the shelf space in Barnes and Noble. Talk to your retailer about the cuts he's making. A strong Marvel and DC urgently required again for the health of the overall American industry. And I don't disagree with him, but I do disagree with the concept that just because that's what Barnes and Noble is selling is what your local comic store is selling. Because overall, I can hear about all the crazy people that are like fervently looking for Dragon Ball Z and One Piece. And obviously, there's a TV show that people are watching and they're going to want the other stuff. That is not always readily available. It's very hard to keep manga in. What people don't realize is that here is a book I want to order. Well, only these and only these are available. And when this is finally available, these and these are not. You know, it's that type of thing. And when you're talking about One Piece, you're talking about 70 or 80 or 100, issues, trades of those. And no comic store can devote that kind of space. A Barnes and Noble can have a crap ton of those in the back stock. They can order up everything before a comic store even gets to sniff those things. And they get to return them. Guess who doesn't get to return those things? Everybody likes to talk about sales, but they don't realize we are stuck with those. When we're the last person buying something, I always feel like if there's a crowdfunded comic book, how many people are going to really care after it's out there? A lot of times only the people that really care know about it being crowdfunded anyway.
Sure.
I'm really dominating this conversation. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, you're fine. But no, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like I get what Mark's saying. I do think there, but obviously there's more to it, and Twitter and the internet in general tend to do a bad job of allowing nuance and things like that. I think it's fair for some people who are frustrated to be like, there are negative things going on, and why aren't we talking about them? But it's not the whole picture. So I wish there were better platforms for people to actually like talk about these things and not just like point to an article or point to this and be like, this is representative of the entire country or the entire market. And it's also tough because there are some stores, like you were saying, I mean, JHU, and I've been there before and I've gone to signings there, all sorts of stuff. But again, Manhattan real estate prices are probably a bigger issue than would be in some other places, for example. Because when you're in Manhattan and you're selling floppies, you're not charging a premium. It's not like Starbucks or McDonald's where it's like, oh, the McDonald's in Times Square is twice as much as the McDonald's in, like Detroit, Michigan. It's like, no, if you're a comic shop in Detroit, you're a comic shop in Manhattan, in Times Square, you still got to charge the same amount for the floppies. You just have to move more. So there are factors like that involved. Absolutely. But yeah, I do understand the frustration of there is a contingent of people where nothing you say will get a response other than, things are great. What are you talking about? I think that has, though, been diminishing a bit this past year. I think you have been seeing a lot more people and some of the people who are considered the usual suspects who are saying things like, yeah, it could be better, or this could be that. And it's being ignored so people can be like, oh, no, you said everything was great last year. So we're going to keep quoting you and keep, so it sucks.
The thing is that the thing is like all the people that get so disgruntled about the 1 or 3 comics that are in their, peripheral.
Yeah.
I was going to talk to you about Wonder Woman. So many people upset about that. I wonder how many people have read Wonder Woman. Now, you have read a shit ton of Wonder Woman. I feel like a person that shouldn't be reading a lot of Wonder Woman. I have read a lot of Wonder Woman, and you put me to shame. But like all the people were getting ready to get angry immediately, and I'm like, why are you getting angry? It's like this is a superhero comic book. The threat is established. The things are set in motion, and then we see our main character and how they react, and then we see the villain at the very end, and it's like brand new villain.
Yeah.
Sellout comic book. I mean, it's like it really wasn't that bad, and I just don't understand why everybody's like, thoroughly shitting on it.
Here's the thing, too. I think people that are more Wonder Woman fans than Tom King fans probably won't love it. But if you're DC and you're making decisions on this stuff, and it does not matter how much I or anyone likes Wonder Woman, it's not a top selling book for them.
Right.
You know who does consistently have books, and if you look at Amazon's top 100 DC graphic novels, who has multiple books in there? Tom King. This in the aftermarket, in the collected editions, it's a Tom King book. He has a whatever anyone says about Tom King, he has a stronger aftermarket presence as a writer than a lot of creators at DC right now. You know what's going to sell better in trade and hardcover than most of the recent Wonder Woman runs? Tom King's Volume 1 of Wonder Woman. It's just like, that's just a fact.
Right.
And there's no beating around. So it's one thing for someone to be like, this is personally not my thing. But the problem with the discourse is that's not enough. It's people have to go above and beyond and be like, this is not my thing. Therefore, it's also a bad decision. And they will lose money on this, and they will lose readers. And it turns into a bigger thing when no matter how you slice it, no matter what you like, Tom King is a dedicated fan base enough where these trades and hardcovers are gonna sell better than if they had someone else on the book. If they had almost anyone else on the book. That's just the reality.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you had Greg Rucka and Brian Azzarello, and then now we have Tom King. And before that, it was it probably wasn't better than when it was Diodato penciling the Bill Messner-Loeb stuff, I would assume. Even the Phil Jimenez stuff probably didn't do that well, even though it was beautiful. But I mean, there was a lot of space in between that was getting filled that nobody gave two shits about,
Yeah.
And
no,
I think people getting up in arms about stuff. It's like, let's go into something and like something. Let's try and enjoy something. I had when I worked at my old store, Comic Relief, as an employee, we weren't supposed to write signs that had negatives in it. It's like, this isn't your, nope, that's bad right there. Don't write that. And, we're supposed to just accentuate the things that are good for the people that want to care about something like that. It's not necessarily what you like. And I understand that, negative is something that people need in order to get people to get engaged and things like that. And pretty much that's what ultimately everybody says. But it's really getting frustrating to see that all the time. I am getting more and more aggravated, and my negativity is going to be about all those people that are negative about everything, because it's like, do you fucking like this or not? You know what I mean? Do you like comic books? You talk about movies all the fucking time. You know what I mean? You talk about other stuff, and it's like, do you really? I mean, you're lauding eras that were so great, which we know weren't really that great. Everybody likes Quasar. Nobody liked Quasar. Just because it sold better then, it was cheaper. If I sold cheap comics like that now, even in my low rent, it would be bad. Jim Hanley's wouldn't stay afloat if it was $1.25. It's just the reality of the situation is, we say we want to pay people, and then when we have the opportunity to do that, do the companies pay enough? Are you ever going to get hired by the big two? When is it going to happen, man? I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready for some Joe Corallo action on a big two book.
I'm ready too. So
yeah, all right, darn. So you went to Portland. So I'm sorry, we haven't even talked about Portland.
It's fine.
You got me sidetracked with Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah,
I'm sure it bored everybody. But the Legion fans are going to come out in force for the first 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
What how was Portland? How was that? You got to hang out with Eric Canetti. I love Eric Canetti's work. Have for a long time. Do I have a picture of you with him? I thought I did, but maybe not. Anyhow, continue.
Yeah. No, it was really good. It was great seeing him. Ben Temple Smith. I got to sit at the booth with him for a while. Just hang out with him. Got to go out with there we go.
Eric Canetti.
Yeah.
I've been on a show with him before.
Yeah. No, he's great. He's just as soft spoken in person.
He's got the voice I wish I had.
Right.
It's just like he has a you feel like his temperament all the time.
Yeah. No, definitely.
He's a great illustrator too. I have his Arc Athena books.
Yes.
When I was telling Joe Casey, I think it was an Eric Canetti Mr. Majestic when I first realized who Joe Casey was. And it was like a super trippy book, and it was everything I needed at the time. And then he did Ladytron, if I remember correctly, and all sorts of stuff that was really great.
Yeah.
He writes an okay book too. What do you think? Like, maybe like a 7, maybe an 7.5 writing.
Yeah. No, the story, it's. I mean, you're buying it for the art, but it's a fun story.
If you're a fan of X-Men and sci-fi type stuff, I would highly recommend Arc Athena. I'm sure.
Absolutely. I'm a sucker for both those things. So
yeah. Oh, good. So you've read I haven't read the third one, but I have it.
I have the third one. I haven't read the third one either, but I do have it.
Yeah, it's like I read the first 2, and now I'm like, I know I'm in, but it's not going to cross over with X-Men. So
yeah, no, for sure. But no, it was good. Got to hung out with a bunch of people. It was great seeing like a lot of people. Just going around, seeing people I haven't seen in years. A buddy of mine, Eric Donovan, got to see him and spend time with him for a while. I went out with it was me, Eric, Ben Temple Smith, and Kevin McGuire. We went out for drinks, and we did this restaurant Screen Door, which is like a sort of Southern comfort restaurant that's very popular in Portland, and had a great time. Kevin McGuire's a riot. He's really funny. He really loves Godzilla. He's going to the Godzilla premiere in like a month or so.
Dude, that movie looks so good. I don't even like Godzilla that much.
He is flying to Tokyo to watch
Wow.
it in Tokyo. Like, that's how much he's like, he just loves it. So we ended up, we talked more about Godzilla than like comics, because we were talking. I was trying to get it, like, what was your favorite Godzilla movie? We were talking about all that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And he was an extra. Here's your comics fun fact: Kevin McGuire's an extra in the Godzilla '98 movie with Matthew Broderick.
Oh, really? Never saw that one, but I've seen that video. What was that? One of those hip hop guys. I can't remember.
Oh, the Puff Daddy.
Was it Puff Daddy? Yeah, yeah.
Daddy, and was it Jimmy Page? And they were.
It was dun 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 dun. It was horrible.
And then you had what was it? The Wallflowers did that cover of Heroes.
Oh yeah, that's Dylan's son, right? Jacob Dylan.
Yeah.
We Can Be Heroes. It was a pretty good song.
Yeah, if you want to watch something, I think it's up somewhere. But one of the probably worst mistakes that the Wallflowers ever made was they once had Bruce Springsteen join them to sing One Headlight.
Wow.
And you don't do that, because turns out Bruce Springsteen's better at that.
Wow.
So why would you want to hear them? Why would you want to hear Dylan's son sing that when you could listen to Bruce Springsteen? I mean,
it's so in writing and comics, I'm sure it's very much like that. And I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah.
You have to nurture the future talent all the while holding them back.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I love Chris Claremont and everything he did. Yeah, he was doing everything. Nobody else was.
I did get a bunch of signatures, though. I'll show you a couple of things I got. I finally got my favorite issue of Wonder Woman, and I got Adam Hughes while I was at the show.
Right on the fucking good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. So for those interested, it's an Eric Luke issue 142. It's a solid issue, and another really fun thing I got to enjoy was I lugged out my Superman for All Seasons Absolute Edition, and I got Jeff Loeb to sign it, and he did like a little. He went a little extra, did like a little Superman symbol remark, did all that. Like, it was a nice job there. And I got to tell Jeff Loeb that the first Absolute Edition I bought, which is true, was Absolute Long Halloween. And I got Tim Sale to sign and sketch in it at New York Comic Con 2011. And as he was doing that, he goes, they're doing a Absolute Edition of Dark Victory. There's a pause for a beat, and then he goes, they'll make an Absolute out of anything now.
Dark Victory was like, it was a follow-up. It was what it was.
Yeah. And so I got to tell Jeff Loeb that. He was like, that sounds like Tim. It was fun. And then I told him, I'm like, and he followed that up with, if you want a really nice looking book, you should get Absolute New Frontier. And which again, true. And Jeff was just like, that also sounds like Tim. Yeah, so we're talking about that.
Oh man. Darwin Cook, very good artist. Winnie agrees the rent's too high. Road Comics says you must really hate America. Only people that hate America would have liked that issue. No, also people that hate men, I think, would hate that issue. The thing is that we'll find out in the second issue that there was mind control. I think people are like really overreacting, and one of the reviews of Wonder Woman that I heard was the phrase that got me, and it was because behavior was brought up, and what it was in reference to is Tom King always does these depressing stories and these introspective issues of things that never really occurred, like Adam Strange is a war villain in another world, but not on ours. He's a hero. And Mr. Miracle and Darkseid eating carrots and stuff like that in a very human moment. These are the things that we expect, and ultimately we think we want to shoot ourselves in the head when we read these books, and I don't disagree necessarily. But this was a thing that was brought up on a video that I watched. It said, Tom King, it said, past behavior is an indicator of future behavior. And this felt like something that doesn't really have any place to do with writing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like how people have to read into okay, this is another thing that I think has been, popularized, I think, somewhat in certain corners of YouTube. And it goes beyond Tom King. It's people who are always like, oh, well, I'm just going to read into everything as the person's personal life. And with every comic they write or whatever, and it's just like I think that's too much. I wish people would tone that down a bit. I mean, maybe they're right sometimes, but it becomes like there are certain people where after a while it's like that's your review of everything that this guy does. Like this writer can't do anything without you being like, well, something must have happened to them in their life, and that gets annoying. But that is one thing, and that's probably my biggest critique of the issue, was it's not a Tom King problem, it's a DC problem of how many more of these villains who have been around for centuries, the Court of Owls, and like Vandal Savage and Ra's al Ghul and Darkseid, and going and going of and then and they're always introducing a new villain, and the hook is always they've always been there in the shadows. And
I would agree with this. I would agree 100% with that.
That said, like you were saying, it's an issue 1. We don't know the full story yet. Maybe maybe there's something more to it. And if there is, by the time a trade comes out or something, where I think it's safe to say a large percentage of Tom King's audience is trade waiters, that all might be resolved, and a lot of the stuff that people are talking about now isn't going to mean anything, So,
well, all it's sold out of my store, and although I'm expecting some damaged copies to come back in, it's sold out from distributor also. So anybody that's a speculator, in the very least, there is a brand new villain, and there's a little element that's added as a wrinkle with the thing is that I really do think this is one of Tom King's better crafted stories. I feel like Danger Street I've really enjoyed, but it's you're reading a little bit of everything. But as far as one issue, he goes from making me hate the Americans, the Sergeant Steele character, Not really care too much about some of the stuff that you might want to ask yourself, like how many fucking Amazons are in America, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact that some people are being subjugated to these people's will because of something that happened, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. And not only that, someone that's defended your country for so long is a part of them. That's not cool at all. And you're worrying about that. You're seeing a kid stripped away from their family. Even you're seeing someone die from the bullets that are being shot. That shouldn't happen. They explain everything. It's long, it's drawn out. But what I did really enjoy was that I wasn't thinking about the lasso as the lasso of truth until it was used that way. I thought of it as a weapon. Like, Wonder Woman's got to fight. She's, her life is in danger, and she's having, a bit of a philosophical conversation with Steel, trying to figure stuff out and whatnot. And then she makes that guy tell the truth. And I was like, whoa, I kind of forgot that the lasso has the power. And it was crafted so well because at the very end, when we find out about the lasso of lies, it's like, whoa, I didn't even think about the truth aspect of it. And now there's a lies aspect. I think Tom King did a really, really good job. Now, as far as LK talking about the Justice League, if I remember correctly, the Batman and the Outsiders was created because the Justice League didn't want to get involved in government bullshit. And I remember Wonder Woman walking away many a time from the Justice League because they didn't want to get involved with like government bullshit, world bullshit. So I don't think that we really have to think too hard about it. And as far as the U.S. Changing laws quickly for things, it goes right back to Civil War. And everybody loves Mark Miller. Everybody loves Civil War. It's no different than that. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Fight me on it. Come on, fight me.
Now, I do wish this wasn't happening the same time as the other Civil War book, the Bat-Cat War is going on.
Yeah.
Like
quality control, please.
Yeah, like there's just stuff like that with the overall line. I wish was a little tighter, but no, I think a lot of the qualms I have with the story right now could potentially be resolved with a handful of pages in the next few issues of just explaining certain things. I think knowing some more about the Sovereign and what the objective is, and like some of these other things, because right now, it is that thing where it's like, okay, he's pulling the strings and this is happening, but like, why? Like I want to get to that point where it's like, well, what is the end goal here? What is the, okay, he's doing this to the Amazons, but for what? And it's a first issue. So like, there's a chance in the next couple of issues, it's like, oh my God, that's really great. There's also that chance of it's the same bullshit it's always been, So like, the next few issues, I think, are really going to be the make or break on this book, and if they can, if he can really pull this off, and again, have to keep in mind, like a lot of these things are written for the trade. They're written for that hardcover release, and that's Tom King's bread and butter. That's what he does. So. A lot of these problems might not be problems at all for anyone who that's what they're going to read it as.
Well, you're right. And I mean, that's unfortunate that comic books have kind of sort of become that thing. I wish what they would do is a guy like Tom King would do a book and it would come out quarterly, let's say. And then in the meantime, they'll have the regular Batman and Superman come out, maybe a Justice League. And then you could have... but I don't know if that would necessarily work either. It's a different type of fan. And I mean, as far as the first issue and its crafting, I don't really think I can attack the writing of it at all. And I know you're in a situation where you don't want to talk shit about creators of comic books too often and get in situations where you have to. I am happy to joke about, like, you know, Bendis' speech and things like that. But
Sure.
ultimately, you know, these guys are doing something that I'm not doing, and I don't like suppose that I can do it better. There are elements that I think maybe should be worked on differently, but when people are like going so hog wild on Zeb Wells, it's it's rough, you know. I mean, we don't know all the interactions with the offices or the things that they have to do, and the time constraints that they have. I mean, he's putting out 2 books a month. I'm not like getting on, you know, a soapbox for him, but you know, things get so very personal, and I agree. We should have a a show where I am outraged about all the outrage. We
There you
didn't get
go.
about Dan Slott talking about the 50 years of superheroes recovering like rubber bands. We didn't really talk about, oh, you know what? The one thing I wanted to talk about, I got to let you know. I responded to Mark Miller because he said that let me just do this. Okay, very good. He said that the market is changing. Jeff Johns can move 1 million units of his Joker stories, so the market is there if stories are told. And I said that didn't sell 1 million.
Yeah.
And he said 3 issues totaled 1 million. Sales that are very. I think he moved the goalpost there. What do you think?
Yeah.
You know how many covers there were of that thing? You know how many? You know that was returnable, right? I mean, that was not 1 million copies. I fail to believe that that was 1 million copies.
Yeah. I mean, I will say very similarly that the hardcover of that, it has consistently been a top seller at Amazon. So that the collected edition is definitely moving a lot of units. But yeah, like you said, I mean, once returnability is in the mix, the numbers all smoke and mirrors. Like
it also happened during COVID when not everybody was putting stuff out during that time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
it had a leg up on everything. It's not the same ballpark, even. You know,
Yeah.
It's like a major leaguer in a little league ballpark, hitting home runs. It's like everything. It's like when they you know, Boom's not doing that great these days. It's like it's the pandemic's over. The newness of Keanu Reeves is over. You know, yeah. Who cares about Boom? You know. Anyway.
Yeah,
Joe Corallo.
but yeah, no, but for example, I mean, Three Jokers came out almost 3 years ago. It came out November of 2020, the hardcover release, and it is currently number 13 in DC Comics and Graphic Novels on Amazon, and 19,131 for all books on Amazon, which is a high number for graphic novels. So 3 years out doing that, like it's clearly it clearly sold well and is selling better than a lot of stuff. But yes, the floppy numbers are wishy-washy. It's hard to tell with a lot of that stuff. Did it sell better than most things in the past few years? Sure, yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, and it's because you had you know, it was a writer people are mostly positive on, like and you had really good art from Jason Fabok. So yeah, it's solid. It's going to move. But yeah, it'd be great to have more books like that. Unfortunately, with something like Three Jokers, it doesn't really seem like it's affecting canon much or anything. It's like kind of like not canon, but maybe.
Right.
It's in this weird gray area, which I think there's a number of the kind of like mini series and black label books are in a, you know, there are some that are very clearly identified, like the White Knight universe. but there are some where they feel like The Killing Joke, where it's like, this isn't canon until we decide it's canon, and then it's canon, and then so.
And it's all futuristic and everything. A couple last comments. Vincent Flanagan, he should talk about his issues, not write them. Well, I don't disagree necessarily, but those are the things that make us tick. If we can bring them out and it rings true with the characters that you're reading, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. LK has two things to say. This book needed more setup to build the threat and at least give some justification to the U.S. reaction. Multiple attacks ending in an assassination of a government official. Don't necessarily disagree, but overreaction these days for something simple. This wasn't simple. I think we'd overreact. Lastly, weren't the government officials justified in killing the Amazon because she already killed an officer and was charging at them with a deadly weapon? I don't remember if she killed an official, but they were really getting up in her face. So that's the one thing to say.
I mean, this is the thing is, again, like the way these things are written, it's written in 5-6 issue, like that's like the chunk of the story that's being written. A lot of these things, like we need more explanation stuff, that might be the 3rd issue,
right,
where that happens. And when you're reading it in that format, and if that's the only format you read it in, which is a growing number of people, especially people that are like fans of Tom King, a lot of them are trade waiters. That's they're not going to even think of any of this stuff. They're going to be like, oh no, that was all taken care of. So like these complaints or these like maybe not complaints, but these observations aren't going to have any weight or merit, potentially, depending on if they stick the landing in this first arc once it's collected.
It's like when people have an argument about like one panel of a page or one page of a comic book, and it's like you don't know the beginning and the middle of the end of this whole thing, and you're just overreacting about this. I mean, I could pick out some things in the Never Ending Party, and it would piss those people off.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you trying to piss people off again?
I don't write any of that stuff to piss people off. I can honestly say I have never written anything and thought to myself, this is really going to piss off like so and so, or because it's like, I don't do that, but I also don't go, well, I can't write that because that might offend someone. Like
you never once. I mean, you didn't know that you're like, man, I know I'm probably overstepping the line. I think I'll make this a little bit nicer, make it a little bit more flowery or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think to do that sort of stuff. Like, there's a difference between getting a note and applying a note if an editor is like, I don't think this is, I think this is bad, do this. And if it's like, work for hire, especially, or you have to pick your battles and you don't feel as strongly about that, sure. There are certain things I'll fight for, but if you pick a fight over every little thing, you're difficult to work with and forget it,
right.
And we all have heard stories about that. So it's like you pick your battles. If someone's like, maybe this is too mean or this is too that, or why don't you do this instead? And it's something personally that I'm like, I could take it or leave it. Fine, I'll leave it. But that way, when I put my foot down and go like, no, I need to do this and this is why, they listen to you. And I've had to do stuff like that, and at least get to the point of that or a compromise where it's like, hey, I think this is important to put in. If you think it can be, if we can work on a way for me to get this in this story that you feel better about, sure. But otherwise, you know, it's like you gotta fight for some of that stuff.
Right. All right. Awesome. Well, I've kept you way longer than I thought we would be here. I didn't talk about any of the stuff we were going to talk about, other than making sure that everybody knows about your Mad Cave comic. What's the name of it again? Knights of the...
Yeah, King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, out March 12th through Maverick. It is a complete story in a graphic novel.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait. And for anybody that shops at Fantastic Comics, or, you know, you want to get something online, I've got Never Ending Party, and I still have Dahlia in the Dark. I don't know if I have any of Beckstar, but there's a possibility I do, and I can always order it for anybody that walks in. Thank you, Joe Corallo, for showing up yet again. You're awesome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're the best, man. I appreciate it. We could go for like another 5 hours, I bet.
Oh,
I mean, it's late for you, but
yeah, no, for sure.
All right, I'll see you later, man.
Yep.
No